Hang on one sec. What's up, movie lovers? I'm Mike, and this is Gotta Love Them Movies. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming back on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. We are having so much fun here. My special guest on the other line, we've just been chit-chatting away. Things are great. Life is wonderful. The sun is shining. We're glad that you can join us back for another episode, for another installment of just, hanging out and having some fun and, chit-chatting about all the things in the world that we love the most, or movies and movie news and, all sorts of good stuff. There's some really interesting news that has dropped today, in fact, literally minutes ago, and I've had to update. I still have yet to update our special guest on some of this stuff, because it was literally just minutes ago that I was, trying to scramble and put everything together. So when doing a live show, there's only so much preparation that you can do, and everything else you just have to wing. So anyway, I've already referred to him twice. Ladies and gentlemen, my special guest today is a very good special friend of mine. A special friend? I say that in he's a special friend. I have learned more from this one particular individual about comedy and improvisation and how it works more than I've learned from anybody else in the industry, in the business. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for a very good friend of mine, Mr. Chris Griggs.
Yeah, learning stuff is cool.
Chris, I tell everybody that I meet, I've told you multiple times, I've learned more about comedy and improvisation that I have from you than I have from anybody else in the business, in the industry. You're a working actor, you're a working comedian, you're a working improviser, you're a teacher, you are a regular on various people's podcasts. What is it about the industry that you have so much love and passion for?
I think in a way it's either a blessing or a curse. I think the way, depending on how one looks at it, I choose to look at it as a blessing. I started a little bit later, I was in my 20s. So I think there's a part of me that I just wanted to do it so I would have great stories at the old folks' home. And I think the one cool thing about New York is it'll always kind of give you that you can always put yourself up against the best of the best. And I love that. So I think that's what I love. I love New York, particularly as it relates to comedy, because I've always been a big comedy nerd.
Yeah.
And just the gift of being able to really just nerd out and work with great people like yourself and others and learn. And then I think kind of that old martial arts saying that ultimately you want to teach if you're going to take it to the next level. And that has kind of became true with me as well. So I just kind of look at it as all a gift. I think art is so important now. And I know I feel the same way. I just feel like art is kind of the thing with the pandemic that it's not the same as being on live stage, but it's kind of keeping me grinding in, hanging in.
Well, one of the things that I often keep going back to, you talk about art and especially in the pandemic and how it's the thing that keeps us going. I'm often reminded of the movie Dead Poet Society and Robin Williams' character, where he gets all the boys of this school in together and they're just kind of like, okay, what's this crazy person doing? And he's talking about the marrow of life, and we work to sustain life, but we use art and poetry. Specifically, he's talking about poetry, but it's art is the macro umbrella there that gives us a reason to live. It gives us a reason to keep going and to find beauty in things and to be creative and to come up with new ideas and projects. And if you want to be successful in a more professional or a business type setting, it's the arts, it's the creativity that gives you those inspirative thoughts.
Absolutely. I mean, and now because there's so much talk about New York, is it going to die or is it going to come back? I mean, obviously, New York's going to be fine long term. It's New York. It's indestructible. But it will be different. But I also think that, paramount to whatever resurrection that New York becomes is the arts. And I think the people in government in New York really need to take a hard look at New York ain't never going to be New York if you don't help art institutions thrive. So they have to bounce back. You're putting a lot of emphasis on other businesses, but you and I already know. I mean, there are theaters that have already closed. There's teaching spaces that have already closed, and we still have a long way to go. So I just hope that ultimately they understand that you have to have Broadway in New York, which obviously we will. Yeah. But there are so many, right before the pandemic, I would say in all the time that I've been in comedy, there were more spaces to get up and perform than at any time. And I've been in New York 20 years plus, and there had never been more. Just everywhere you look, there are spaces to perform. And that was a wonderful gift that we had that, now we obviously don't have any of it. But when we come back, we'll have less of that. But I just hope that there are just so many theater spaces that desperately need the government to help. And artists, like ourselves. And we need help to try to hang in there and stay afloat. Because honestly, you were talking about me being a teacher. I've always thought of myself, more as a performer, a stand-up, an actor, and then I also teach. But if I wasn't a teacher, especially during the pandemic, I'd be in a bind. I can't audition. I can't. All the stand-up clubs are closed. So, teaching has really helped in a way that at least. I mean, obviously, I'm not really saving any money for my retirement right now, but at least I'm not completely going under because of the fortunate position of people like to study with me. So that's been a gift as well.
To your point, like we as comedians, we're navigating the water now, and transposing that into today's show, we're looking at like how the real world and how this pandemic is affecting, yes, us on a personal level, but also the industry as well. And those are a lot of things that we're going to go over and talk about today. And speaking of the show itself, let's just go over and talk about the show order. What is it that we're going to talk about today? Well, guys, as always, we're going to go over to the YouTube channel, tell you how to subscribe to the Gotta Love Them Movies YouTube channel and why that's important. Next, we're going to cover some movie news. There's some interesting breaking news things that just came out today. Then we're going to go through Throwback Thursday, which is a retro movie review segment that we're doing every Thursday. So we look at a movie from yesteryear and just go through, does it hold up as well as we thought it did before? Is it better than we thought it was? Is it worse? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to open up the Gotta Love Them Movies mailbag, and at the end, take your live questions. So that's the order of the show. Let's jump right into the Gotta Love Them Movies YouTube page. So if you go into youtube.com, go over to Gotta Love Them Movies, you'll see a little red box in the top right corner that says subscribe. Go ahead and click that button. What that button does is it builds the subscriber base for the Gotta Love Them Movies YouTube channel. But Mike, we're watching this video on Facebook Live. Why do you need us to go over to YouTube? Well, here's the thing. When I get enough subscribers, or rather when there are enough subscribers for the channel, and when there are enough cumulative hours watched of content on the channel, that will then qualify me to start earning ad revenue. And guess what? When I start earning ad revenue, I get to make this show my full-time job. So if you like this content, if you like what it is that we're doing, if you enjoy movies and kind of having an online community forum to sit down and chit-chat about, go over and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Start watching the content there. Let's start building the views. And speaking of subscribers, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be moving this the show from Facebook to YouTube. And there it is. There it is. You have your announcement, change of address, probably months, if not a year or years in advance. So all of that are things just to look out for. All right, guys. So with all that done and out of the way, now we're going to move on and take some movie news.
What?
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 All right, it is now that portion of the day where we're going to talk a little bit about the movie news. Like I said, there was a lot of things that dropped in the news today, and we're just going to kick it off with this. The new trailer for James Bond's No Time to Die, or rather, a second trailer for James Bond's No Time to Die dropped this morning. It if you have been listening to me with any amount of regularity, if you have heard any of my rants about Spectre, about the new film No Time to Die, you will know that there is no love lost between me and specifically the last film. I did not care for it. It just kind of fell apart. It delivered, it promised, it made all these promises, hey, here's James Bond. Hey, ooh, Spectre is now going to be in the mix. And oh, who's this? Ernst Blofeld, but he goes by a different name. And now they're brothers, or kind of, he's on revenge. What if James Bond ended up being an ice cream man? What if his life took him in a very different direction and he's like, you know what? I don't want to be a super spy. I'm going to be an ice cream man. Was Ernst Blofeld, did he create all of this stuff just so he could mess James Bond's life up? What if would he go through this effort if he was an ice cream man instead of an international super spy? No. No, he would not. And now this film of No Time to Die is kind of carrying on it's like the next chapter in that story. So for that reason, I have not been incredibly excited for this film until this morning. Chris, I sent you this news a couple hours ago. Have you had a chance to sit down and watch the new trailer for James Bond No Time to Die?
I have watched the trailer. I really like it. I think I like the previous film. It sounds like a little bit more than you did, but I'm not what I would consider I've watched every Bond film, but I'm not. There are some things that I get precious about, I guess, or I'm super nerdy about with comic book films, especially. But this, I feel like Bond is fine as long as it's a popcorn film, and I dig it. I did think that they should have ended the series, the previous film, because that seemed like the perfect film to just end it on, right. But I love Christoph Waltz in that role. He's such a wonderful actor. And I did think it was it was definitely a little sloppy, and it seemed like, in my mind, I left the last film thinking, okay, not the best film, certainly not Casino Royale, right? But better than, Quantum of Solace. So it's just time to go. You guys are fine. You're done. Everybody looks good. And then when they were coming out with a new one, I was kind of like, I don't know. I think you guys should really have just let it go. But looking at the trailer makes me think that this is going to be a really good film. I like the fact that, Christoph's character seems like more in a confined role and not just bringing back him as the villain. You got to love some Mr. Robot, little Raimi action for a primary villain. That seems pretty inspired, And every Bond that they introduce is like a home run. Like everybody in that trailer, I'm already a fan of. Although there's a part of me that doesn't like Ben Affleck being able to tell people that he's dating a Bond girl. But other than that,
Léa Seydoux, I've never been a huge fan of Léa Seydoux's. I'm not going to make that blanket statement. Léa Seydoux has a very specific acting style, and it works for some films. I think it's depending on the role, depending on the tone, depending on the movie. I did not personally care for her as a character in a James Bond film, especially when it turns out, again, in the last film, they hated each other. There was no reason for Bond and Léa Seydoux's character to get together in a romantic capacity. They met on the premise, A, of a lie. He was there trying to get information about her father, and B, he needed her to take her to this hotel in the middle of somewhere that had some clue in it. And while they were there, they got drunk and, they had their ways with each other. And then it was just kind of assumed that, oh, hey, now we're a couple and we're in love. And this all happened over the course of 3 days, maybe, entirely. That was a bit of a stretch for me. That was a huge stretch for me. I didn't care for that. It seemed like they were rushing the storyline. And then for Bond, given his previous romantic relationship with Vespa in Casino Royale, comparing that to this, it just seemed disingenuous. And I didn't buy it. I didn't buy that, he threw away his job. He stopped being a 00 at the end of the last film. But, all of that is to say, I didn't care for Spectre. This film I have not been interested or excited in until this morning when I saw the new trailer. It actually feels like a different movie than what the previous trailer had introduced. Chris, have you seen the previous trailer, and how do the two films, or rather, how do the two trailers compare in your brain?
I had not watched the first trailer for Bond, so I didn't really have a comparison. But I will say that I agree with you. I was talking about the new Bond women that they introduced, because they've got
in the
a
new
few
film, yeah.
different ones in the second trailer. I like the new women that they've
Sure.
introduced. I agree with you that I thought their relationship was a little clunky in the film before. And also, it's hard because, Eva Green's character, or Vespa, in the first film, that's probably the best romance that they've ever captured.
Period. Hands
like,
down.
as far as a legit
Agreed.
romance in any Bond film. And it was paramount because, the first couple of films were almost predicated on this idea that Bond got effed up in the head, messed up a little bit because of being in love. And yeah, it's like trying to do a remake of The Godfather in that little universe,
Sure, yeah.
so it's kind of tough. But what was it about? Tell me about the first trailer that was the difference for you between the second trailer that the first one didn't deliver.
The first trailer, it didn't feel like, it felt like an action movie. It didn't feel like a James Bond film. The story that they brought out in the trailer seemed to really carry over. There was a lot of why is Hans Gruber's name coming to mind? There was a lot of Ernst Blofeld dialogue and exhibition voiceover in that trailer. It seemed like they were really carrying over a lot of themes. We didn't really know who we knew there's a new 00, but we didn't get to know, like, who is she? Like, what does she do? You saw like a really brief glimpse of Rami Malek's character, and it just kind of seemed like it was carrying on the relationship between Bond and Blofeld. And I feel like we got enough of that in Spectre. This trailer, it references it, but it feels like the story goes in a very different direction. They gave us more in terms of what to expect in the film, the action, a little bit more of the story, and some of the personal stakes that aren't this, ooh, mystery. What's this background story? Oh, he has a brother. Ooh. And they didn't hammer down on that in this trailer. We got a better look at more of the characters. I love, and this is the first film that we've actually had more supporting characters portrayed by women than we have in any other Bond film period. I think that is a refreshing take on the character. And if they end up retiring the character of James Bond and take the franchise in a very different direction, I'm all for it. I love Daniel Craig as James Bond. I love the character of James Bond. I love this whole 007 thing. I love the super secret spy aspect. I would not be entirely upset if they kind of retired James Bond for a decade and took the franchise in a very different direction. Do you have different feelings, Chris?
I wouldn't be upset. It's all in execution, I guess. It's almost like, to me, if they brought in a new Batman, like, I'm not like, oh, let Batman be gone for 10 years. It always just depends on execution for me. I definitely think that they're missing something if they're just going to bring back another Bond in that same vein of, like, this is another alpha male, hetero white dude that's a Bond. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you're going to bring Bond back, I think you should challenge yourself. Like, I've wanted Idris Elba to be Bond for 5 years now.
Man, he'd be perfect.
I've always kind of kept hoping. And so, if not him, I'm fine if they like the new 00 that's coming in, if they like her work in this film, if they wanted to do a series off that. But I do think if we've learned anything from what Marvel did, it's that creating a larger universe in which, it's good. Why not? You've already invested all of this. So why not just open up the universe? It's a very big Bond world. Every movie does not have to be Bond. And let's go in some different directions, because you've got some pretty amazing actors, at the core of that whole film. Even if I would love to see Jeffrey Wright with some version back with another Bond or another 00 and see what that looked like. I think that they could build out the
Agreed.
universe, and then you could start actually bringing in a lot of different characters.
Or let's get
know,
a Felix
and you could have
Leiter
a lot more fun with
standalone
it.
film. Let's get a
Right.
Felix Leiter more involved. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think of the new Bond trailer that just dropped today? This is trailer number 2. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Did it elevate your excitement, or did it kind of like squash your expectations a little bit? Go ahead and jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, that does it for the breaking movie news. There is more news to come later in the show in the form of your emailed questions. Many of you have emailed me questions, but we'll take those in a little bit. Right now, we're going to jump into Throwback Thursdays. All right, you guys, Throwback Thursdays. It is that time of the week again where we take a film not from this year, not a recent film, and we're going to go back and revisit it. We're going to tell you our thoughts, our feelings, what's in our heart, what's on our mind, and, you know, kind of rehash things out a little bit. First time around isn't always necessarily the best time around, and this time around we are reviewing the film Suicide Squad, the 2016 version of Suicide Squad. Now, I remember when this film first came out, Chris, I left the theater excited. I wasn't as excited for like an event, like on the same level as like an Avengers movie, but I liked the film. It left me with positive feelings. I know that director David Ayer had to go back and do some heavy reshoots. They had to infuse, the first time around, the film just didn't have like a light enough tone. It was a little too dark. It was a little too dire. And so they filmed some reshoots to insert into the film to kind of give it a lighter tone, a little bit more lighthearted. They infused various musical choices. And yeah, when I left the theater, I liked it. And I previously reviewed it at like a 70%. I thought it was a good film. Having rewatched it, James Gunn's Suicide is coming out next year. DC Fandom just made a big, huge hullabaloo over, the new cast. There was a behind-the-scenes trailer production, the whole thing, which inspired me to go back and revisit the original Suicide Squad. I have decided this is a bad film. 4 years ago, I thought it was fun. I didn't think it was terrible, but I thought it was a fun movie. I thought it was decent. I thought it was good. 4 years to have something sit with you and change your mind drastically is exactly what this movie did for me. Chris, when was the last time you saw Suicide Squad, and what are your general thoughts of it?
I watched it in the theaters, and I've watched it on television since. I think I even watched it maybe at the very beginning of the pandemic, maybe back in March. I hated the film when it first came out, and then as far as like a TV watch, I thought it was a fun distraction. Oh, bless you.
Oh, thank you.
I thought it was a fun distraction. I think, and a lot of it is, I think the stakes were so high for Suicide Squad the first time. I really liked that property, that it just felt completely mismanaged, and that seemed like a property that they should not have a problem getting right. I guess, I know, I've never done a film. So it was that, even though there's people that I really like as actors, like I'm a big Will Smith fan.
Who isn't?
I think Will Smith is, if you bring in Will Smith, I think it's harder to do a group ensemble film. It's doable, but the director and the studio and everyone has to agree that that is what is going to happen. I think Marvel did, a pretty good job in Avengers of taking some pretty big stars like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and ultimately Scarlett Johansson, and like it doesn't feel like, it feels like an ensemble.
They make sure
piece.
that they had the chemistry before casting them in the film.
Right. And that, to me, that film didn't have any real chemistry. I thought Will Smith, as far as the director and the writing pushing him in a different direction to be Deadshot, it kind of had that, you could have basically slotted that character in a lot of big premiere films that he's done, and that kind of thing, what I always call the moment where Will Smith goes, oh hell no,
Right.
that
Yeah.
thing where
Yeah.
that moment, and it just, I mean, Will Smith is fine, he's always
Yeah.
good. It just, I felt like he dominated too much of it. And Deadshot, although is an interesting character, he's a guy that never misses with guns. And when you start elevating to the level of Suicide Squad CGI crazy stuff, it's hard to really grasp that the two characters out of Suicide Squad that are going to save the day are going to be the Harley Quinn with her mallet and Deadshot
Well,
with his
that
guns.
brings up a really great point that I've been sitting on for weeks. I've been wanting to talk about this ever since we rewatched it. You can replace every single character, including Harley Quinn, including Deadshot. Replace every single character from this film with any other character that you want from the DC comic universe, and nothing has changed. The story of the film, nothing has changed. None of the characters mean anything. None of the characters matter. None of the characters make a difference for who they are. Like Deadshot as Deadshot doesn't make a difference because he's Deadshot. He makes a difference because he's a filler. He's a character that needs to serve a purpose, and it does. Like, you could have Harley Quinn in the role of Deadshot. You could have Joker in the role of Deadshot. Like, it doesn't matter who you cast in that role, or not in that role, but in that position, like as the leader of the team. So you have Rick Flag as the leader of the Suicide Squad, and then you had Deadshot as kind of like the number two. Doesn't matter. It really genuinely didn't matter who they put in any of that stuff. Anyway, guys, we are going to start breaking the movie down for you in terms of, acting and directing and writing and all that stuff. So let's jump into acting real quick. Chris, the acting of the film, I thought was pretty bad. It was mediocre at best. I think it was sub-average. Even Margot Robbie and Will Smith were the two charismatic people on screen, and neither one of them delivered. It just kind of, like, when you look at the new Harley Quinn movie, what is it? Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is the entire mouthful of a title for that film. I liked it. I thought it was a fun movie. I thought it was engaging. I thought Margot Robbie did she was also in creative control of the character and the story. And I think both of them worked. Now, I know there are a few people out there that don't like that film. I do. But her characterization of Harley Quinn was so much better than what it was in Suicide Squad. Do you have a different take on the general acting of the film, or do you feel that it was substandard?
I thought the acting was bad, but it's also one of those things where I guess I do sort of, on some level, I don't know if this is right. It's hard to, sometimes when you see actors that are actually, they're good, consistent actors. I think Will Smith is a great actor consistently, if he especially, and he gets pushed if he has a good director. I think Margot Robbie is a consistently, really surprisingly excellent actor as well. And it almost, I felt like part of it was writing and direction, because when I first watched Suicide Squad, I thought that the acting was generally pretty bad, but I thought Will Smith was fine. He was just not pushed. He was doing what he does. And I thought Margot Robbie's acting was actually quite good. I thought she was good in the first one. I liked her acting in the second Harley Quinn film, to your point, probably even better. I didn't love that film, but I didn't hate it. Yeah. I liked it. Sure. I liked it better than Suicide Squad, which is not that high a bar. But I did think that part of the problem, though, with Margot Robbie's character is the hand she got dealt. I kind of feel the same way a little bit with the way that some of the characters went. She got dealt a character in an abusive relationship that really didn't get to have an arc, with a Joker character that was only in and out. And it's the same thing, like with the Joker. Like, I like Jared Leto. I think he's a good actor. I felt like I almost feel bad for him, and I don't know that any of this is justified, but I almost felt bad for him in a way that if he'd never been in Suicide Squad and they just did the Batman film, I almost think he could have pulled off the Joker. He's a good actor. I wasn't in love with the look, but the way that they dealt the Joker in that film was just like a bad movie video, a music video, just like a lot of that film was shot. And he was just doing bad dialogue in bad situations. We got to know nothing about the Joker. And he kind of just, it messed him up because they never were going to continue that Joker by the horrible portrayal that he got in the film. Right. And it's hard for me to blame him based on the dialogue and the short amount of time that he was in the movie. Completely.
Well, guys, we have some very strong opinions about everyone's acting on the overall whole. Just kind of, it was up, it was down. Some of it was bad, some of it was okay. So for all of those reasons, we are giving acting a 9 out of 20 score. Chris, you had mentioned a few things with directing. We're going to move into the directing portion. Specifically, you were referring to David Ayer's directing example and also the editing of the film. I think it's important to realize that the editing of this film was done by a trailer company. And the people who cut movie trailers do so in a very different style or method or manner from people who are film editors. It's a very different skill. It's a very different discipline. And a lot of that showed in this Suicide Squad film. There was a lot of quick cuts, a lot of, they focused in on a lot of more of the action and type things, and the pacing just felt wrong. The pacing was off. You were talking about the directing of the actors themselves, and how it just didn't jive. I mean, we're going to get into the writing in just a minute, but to your point, they didn't complete the story arc of Harley Quinn in this abusive relationship with the Joker. That's a great point. It's something I hadn't thought of before, but in terms of the directing, the tone was all over the place. They had these really heavy, serious moments, intercut with these really lighthearted, silly moments. And then when you get into the overall story, what is this movie about? It just didn't, everything fell apart in terms of tone. The lighting, I guess, looked okay. I guess the lighting was fine. The lighting was consistent throughout the movie, so I'll give them that. But yeah, the tone, the editing, the direction, none of this made sense. From a directing standpoint, do you feel differently than I do, or is there anything else that you'd like to point out about how good or how poor the directing was?
Nah, I think I would blame the directing even more than the acting. And the whole thing about tone, if you have good actors, I mean, the script's not that good, but the tone and the directing are the things that can elevate it. Because, you could make the point that, Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of a similar ensemble piece. And when James Gunn did the first film, Dave Bautista is not a good actor. Don't
not.
Fool yourself. He's gotten to be better over time.
He's getting better.
But this is a guy that came straight out of pro wrestling, had done a few, small films, and he looks like a rock star in that film. And I think because someone understood the character, someone understood the tone, and Bautista looks like a rock star. I mean, he's a much better actor now than he was when he did the
James
first
Gunn
film.
Also understood his talents. They understood his range. They knew what he could do,
right.
And so they gave him things to do that were within his capacity of doing.
Yep. It's unfortunate. I don't want to dump it all on the director, but I feel like, yeah. I do think there was studio pressure to do a certain kind of film, but I'm just guessing at that. Yeah. But the directing was bad. It didn't work.
So I think Chris and I are in alignment in this regard, which is why directing, we both feel that the directing was worse than the acting. And for those reasons, we are giving directing a 7 out of 20. 7 out of 20. Oof. It's only going to go down from here, you guys. All right, so the writing of the film, this is where it all starts, or rather, this is where it goes awry. The writing of the film can save the film. You can have bad actors but a great script, or you can have, in this case, really good actors and a bad script. And this is what we got. The story was not cohesive. There was actually, if you look at the whole story of Suicide Squad, there's no reason for this story to exist at all. the whole crux of the story, spoilers, I'm going to tell you the whole thing. Years ago, there was a woman out, she was like an explorer or whatever. She stumbled upon some like demon, spirit, enchantress, whatever. She was possessed by this demon enchantress, and now they call her the Enchantress. Her heart had been cut out, and whoever is in possession of this in the Enchantress's heart is in control of her, and so they get to control the magic of whoever is in control of this heart. Well, guess what? Viola Davis, as kind of the one who organized the Suicide Squad, she is the one in possession of this person's heart. How did she get in possession of the heart? Nobody knows. That is never explained, but she's in possession of it. And guess what? Through her own silly, so she wants to create a squad of super powered people to battle, let's say, Superman. Like, the whole thing is based on the premise of thankfully Superman is a good guy, but what if Superman was a bad guy? Who would we get to stop Superman? Which is actually kind of an interesting philosophical question. So they get this team of bad guys together to fight a bad superpower, and to illustrate their point, Viola Davis lets the Enchantress loose in the middle of, was it Gotham City or wherever this happened to be? She let Enchantress loose to do her evil thing so that she could prove her point, to say, see, we need a Suicide Squad. Da-da-da-da-da-da. There's no reason for the story of this movie to exist, and then we waste time going into the relationship of Joker and Harley Quinn, which, Chris, as you pointed out, there's no reason, well, first of all, there's no reason for those side clips to exist, but they don't finish the story arc. There is no story arc. It's just, hey, I'm in an abusive relationship, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's, the whole thing doesn't make sense. It's a convoluted idea. No. It's not a convoluted idea. It's a convoluted story. It's a great premise. It's a great idea, but they don't do anything with it. They create their own problem and mess everybody's day up on the way. Chris, I just ranted for a minute. What was the story for you, and how did you connect with it?
No, I think you hit everything for me. I mean, there was no story. There were great ideas, but I think tonally it was all just like a long, bad music video. That's the way I kind of looked at the whole film. And you had either really big Easter eggs you were looking forward to that were very surface writing. That's the way it was very done on a very surface level. Or you had really tonal problems when you start dealing with an abusive relationship and someone that's supposed to be a brilliant psychiatrist, in Arkham, and it's written like on a fortune cookie. So that's kind of almost insulting the way they did it with Harley Quinn and the Joker. But then there were like big moments where like Batman talks to Amanda Waller's character that you're looking forward to, but it's all surface and it doesn't mean anything. Deadshot's trying to get his daughter, but it's not deep. I mean, this is where, I really think a lot of, this is all just me guessing, but I think that they didn't understand how to do comic book films in the beginning. And I would also say Batman versus Superman reinforces that. The first Justice League reinforces that. And they didn't know how to do a comic book film. And when they brought in Will Smith, they started thinking that they were going to do some weird Independence Day version of this movie, and everything became slick and surface, and the writing reflected that. And maybe you can also tell, to your point when you first started, that they did a lot of reshoots, they did a lot of rewriting, and it just shows there's nothing inspired by it.
There's no substance.
There's nothing inspiring.
There's no substance to this film whatsoever. Anyway, guys, so with the writing, we're tearing it apart. The story was bad. The dialogue was bad. The scenes themselves were incoherent. They didn't mesh together. All of that put together based on kind of an interesting concept by itself. We're giving writing an overall score of 3 out of 20. This was bad. The story was bad. All right, so let's move on to the takeaway. The takeaway of the movie itself, there were some, when you look at the concept of the Suicide Squad, Why does the Suicide Squad exist? What happens if you get another, godlike superhuman with the abilities of Superman? What do you do to stop him? What if Superman is off on Krypton and Batman is hanging out with his butler, and Wonder Woman is in Paris fighting her own cheetah villain? Like, who are you going to get to save your corner of the world? This is a really cool idea. I think that's why it works in the comics, because it's a great premise. It's a great idea. And they also execute it well in the comics. They do interesting things. They have a reason for this Suicide Squad to exist. The film did not deliver on the promise, but it is an interesting concept. So the takeaway that just because you're a villain doesn't mean that you can't do good. I like that concept. I like the concept that just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean that you can't do good things. Chris, do you have a different take on this, on kind of like the premise or the overall takeaway of this film, or did none of it work for you?
No, I just think it was a fun popcorn film for whatever, if I'm watching on TV. But I think I love the Suicide Squad as a property. I mean, I was just telling you, we were talking before that I finally got around to seeing Assault on Arkham, which is an animated film, and Suicide Squad Batman. It's fantastic. The idea of actually having heroes in a situation where people are going to die out of the group is very compelling.
Right.
And you want that. And even you kind of brought this up a couple of times, and it goes to me, which is a bit of a fundamental flaw with the film, that if you're creating a film about villains that could take on Superman, no one in that group would last 5 seconds with Superman except for the Enchantress, who's a villain. So no one else could even – Superman would go through the whole run of them in 15 seconds. In the Justice League film, everyone in the Justice League, the person that you would say can't go against Superman is Batman, but basically Batman is smart enough to where he could at least give him a fight. Everybody in the Justice League could give Superman a fight. No one in the Suicide Squad could give Superman a real fight. I mean, Harley Quinn and Deadpool wouldn't last 5 seconds with Superman. So,
you mean Deadshot?
I mean, whatever, he gets Deadshot. Sorry, he gets kryptonite bullets. But I just think at a core, you have a pretty long lineage of people that have been in the Suicide Squad. Just even if you want to put together who you want to put together, I mean, Captain Boomerang is just not going to cut it. I mean, it's fine to put him in the film, but he can't fight Superman, So
I'm just picturing like Captain Boomerang throw his boomerangs at Superman, and just like they just bounce off, and like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Quip? What do you got? Anyway, guys, so our overall takeaway, I didn't think it was the worst concept in the world. I thought it was a decent concept. It just was not executed very well. That's why we're going to put the overall takeaway as a 10 out of 20. And our last category to rate this film is effectiveness. How effective was the movie? Did they hit their mark? Did they accomplish what they wanted to accomplish with Suicide Squad? I mean, we all know nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Nobody does that. That's a ridiculous concept. Well, maybe unless you're Tommy Wiseau. But nobody wants to make a bad movie unless you're Lloyd Kaufman. But nobody, I'm just going to keep listing like bad directors. Nobody wants to make a bad property because they want to make money. They want to be loved. They want to be celebrated. Director David Ayer did not make a bad movie on purpose. He was given a bad script. He was put in a really compromising position. He himself did not deliver very well. I don't know. Like, I feel like this is the kind of film that should have been fun. This was supposed to be DC's answer to Guardians of the Galaxy. This was supposed to be DC's answer to like a fun, lighthearted action adventure movie, and I for one think that it fell so short of the mark. Chris, do you have different thoughts? Did it fall shorter?
I guess it depends on how you want to look at effectiveness. I think based on the way you framed it, yeah, it obviously fell short of the mark in terms of being effective enough to where, if somebody were going to watch it on TV, I'd say watch it. Just, leave your brain in your pocket. and it's effective enough to get a sequel. So they did enough to justify to get a sequel out of it. So I don't know. I mean, we're splitting small points, but I might have given it one or two more points than we were talking before, but that's about it.
Well, in that case, with overall effectiveness, you guys, we are giving the score a 4 out of 20. 4 out of 20. Chris, I feel like you in your last comments were about to give it maybe a couple of more points. Do you think 4 out of 20 is too low?
I might have given it a 5 or a 6, because here's what they did do. Like, if I'm sitting around, I'm trying to pitch my sequel.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, look, we did well enough that we got a Harley Quinn movie out of it based on the same character. That's something. That's not nothing.
Yeah.
And we did enough to justify a sequel, and people want to see that sequel. And I thought that they did, even though, man, I could argue that the writing's not great, they did at least justify why Deadpool would be the one to save the day. And it did have at least some plausibility. Deadshot. Why do I keep saying? Oh, sorry. I know why I keep doing that, because Deadpool's a different character. Deadshot. I just said, what if Deadpool were in there? And he can never die.
I mean, he's a fourth wall breaker. Why not?
Yeah. So Deadshot. They came up with some reason to make it work, and I'm forgetting the name of the character, but it did have little moments of heart with the character that could embody flame.
Diablo.
So there was something there, and the acting in moments was passable. It just wasn't great. So I don't know. I might have given it 5 or 6, but out of 20, that's still sad.
I know, right?
So.
Yeah. Well, Chris is going to give it a higher score, a little bit higher score than 4 out of 20. But I'm sticking with a hard 4 out of 20. He brings up some great points. So guys, that brings our overall score for this for Suicide Squad 2016 to.
Well, now, you see, I not say one thing, mister, before when you... No, honest? No.
That's right, a 33 out of 100. 33 out of 100. Is that fair? Is that not fair? I feel that that's pretty much on the mark. 33 out of 100 for an overall score. Chris, do you think that that's fair?
I think it's a third of a film. So, yeah, I mean, a third of what Suicide Squad could have been. So, yeah, it's
there
fair.
It is. 33 out of 100. So that is our review of Suicide Squad. Yeah, there you go. Take it or leave it. Do you have different thoughts on Suicide Squad? Do you think that it was a better film than what Chris and I are giving it credit for? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all that down and out of the way, it is time to open up the Gotta Love Them Movies mailbag. Guys, if anyone wants to send me an email, a special topic, if there's anything that you specifically want to discuss on the show, just send me an email at GottaLoveThemMovies@gmail.com. Doing so, I will receive all of the emails. They come in 24 hours a day, or rather, the service is available 24 hours a day, because guess what? It's email. You never turn email off. You can always send me an email whenever you want at GottaLoveThemMovies@gmail.com. If there's something in the news, if there's a question that you have, go ahead and send me an email down there at GottaLoveThemMovies@gmail.com. All right, so let's go ahead and open up our first email. And this email comes to us from Molly in Toronto. And Molly says, "Good afternoon, Mike and guest." Well, good afternoon to you, Molly. What is the world coming to? I just heard that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has coronavirus. Did you hear about this? And how will it hurt his career? Yeah, so if this is, oh, no, that's James Bond. Where are we going? Here we go. There's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. If you are new to this piece of news, it has been confirmed. Not only does Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself, not that he has coronavirus, he had coronavirus. He's on the back end of it. He says that he's healed and he's better, but it wasn't just Dwayne Johnson that had coronavirus. It was his wife, and it was his 2 baby daughters. All 4 people in his household had COVID-19. They received it from their family friends that they loved and trusted. He says that they still love and trust their friends. This is I guess, as shocking news. We've got more shocking news coming forward ahead in the show, so hold on to your butts for that. But, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, they were the first celebrities that went public with their coronavirus diagnosis. I know fairly recently, Breaking Bad, what's his name, Chris? Walter White, Bryan Cranston.
I know. I only read his autobiography in the last 6 months. That's
nice.
bad.
Bryan Cranston. So Bryan Cranston very recently came out and said that he and his wife had COVID-19, and now Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his entire family are the latest here to get COVID-19. Your question, Molly, is how will this hurt his career? I don't honestly think that it's going to affect his career very much at all. Everybody's on lockdown right now. There are special procedures and special timelines, and, movie productions have been pushed back a lot, not just a little bit, but a lot of it. And, he was out for, a few weeks? He might be out for a couple of more weeks, but it sounds like, based on all the production stuff, anyway, he was going to be out of... just kind of out anyway. Chris, do you have different thoughts on this, or what do you think that him having COVID-19 might actually hurt his career in some way?
No, I don't think it'll hurt his career at all. I mean, and I don't think it's going to hurt any major actor's career at all to have had it. When I first heard about The Rock, nothing really struck me about it except how many jokes from different comics I was going to hear that he knew that he had it when his first symptom was he couldn't smell what he was cooking. And I thought, yep, I'm going to hear that joke a lot.
Dear.
But that was about it.
Dear.
That was about it. And even now, films have had problems. You're going to have actors that are going to have COVID on set. It's just going to happen. Mm-hmm. And they potentially might have to shut down. But they're not going to shut down, but, 2 to 4 weeks. They're not going to shut down that long because of the cycle that it takes to kind of, to go through it in quarantine. So I don't think it'll affect him at all.
I agree. So guys, what do you think about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson now contracting coronavirus? Do you think that it might hurt his career? Do you have some other thoughts as to how it might impact his career, or anyone else's career? Oh, pardon me. Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, let's go on over to email number 2. And email number 2 comes from Catherine, who lives right here in New York City. Hello, Catherine. She says, yo! ... Francis Ford Coppola is releasing a new cut of Godfather 3. Chris, have you heard this? Is this news to you?
I had just heard this recently.
I think it's pretty cool. So she says he's releasing a new cut of Godfather 3. I can't tell if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Why do directors always go back and tinker with their stuff? Just leave it alone. Having said that, Godfather 3 wasn't the best. So, ... Catherine, thanks so much for sending this in. And yeah, Deadline is reporting that Francis Ford Coppola is throwing together a new cut of Godfather Part 3. Now, this is going to get a theatrical cut as well as a video-on-demand release. Did I say theatrical cut? A theatrical release, as well as we already had the theatrical cut. And, yeah. To your question, though, Catherine, you ask, why do directors always do this? Well, first of all, I don't think directors always do this. I think the vast majority of directors, they put out their work, it is what it is, and, for the most part, they're happy with their finished product. There have been a few directors over the years that have, kind of wanted to tinker. George Lucas was notorious for this. There are multiple iterations of the Star Wars film, of the original Star Wars films. And I think, as I talk about George Lucas, I think he's one of those directors that has exacerbated the issue for people. I don't think the problem so much is that directors go back and, tinker with their films. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola did, a different cut of Apocalypse Now. Ridley Scott has done, a couple of takes on both, what was it, Blade Runner, and I think there were 3 different Blade Runner cuts, and, what was the Alien? I think he did an alternate cut of Alien. So it's not tons of directors that go through and tinker with their things, but when you get a director like George Lucas who will tinker with things and then put statute of limitations or actual legalities on the release of the original theatrical cut, that's something that I'm still waiting for. Thanks to George Lucas, we won't get it while he's alive. In his lifetime, he probably is not going to allow a theatrical cut of Star Wars Empire or Return of the Jedi on Blu-ray or HD whatever quality, 4K quality. He won't allow that, and that is incredibly frustrating. And I think, if I may put words in your mouth for a minute there, Catherine, I think that might be the spirit of the question that you're asking. Like, why do directors go through and tinker with their things, with their movies? I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Directors, they're kind of in control. As long as the studio will allow them to go back and, they will pay the money or spend the money, rather, to make a different cut available, sometimes it can improve the quality of the film. Chris, do you have a different take on this? Where do you stand with directors tinkering with their films?
I think it's always a big gamble, particularly like when Blade Runner was getting tinkered with. I was like, why in the world would you tinker with Blade Runner? But it's not a bad cut. I think when people ask to me that question is, if any of us had directed something at the level of Godfather and we thought that maybe the third one wasn't up to snuff, any of us would do it if we thought we could get away with it. Why wouldn't you? You have hindsight. You can go back and think about where you might have made some different choices. And all of that. So I'm fine. I'm glad he's doing it, especially if you love Godfather. The Godfather 3 wasn't that great, although it did, introduce some great actors and things that went on to have long careers. So I don't have a problem with it. And if you really look at it historically, there's really, you may know this and educate me because I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but I don't really recall a director doing a recut where it was dramatically worse than the film that they were trying to recut.
I think cases can be made for Blade Runner because there are 3 different versions of that film. I know there was one of the, and I don't remember which was which, but
I'm just thinking about the first take, like when the director did one where basically the public consensus was, wow, man, you really should have left that thing alone. Because usually the directors that actually have the pull to do a recut are not shoddy directors to begin with. Like if Steven Spielberg tells me he wants to do a recut of E.T., whatever. Yeah, man, go ahead. You're freaking Steven Spielberg. I think this new Justice League recut worries me a little bit because I think that's ego. Because Justice League is not that good. It's not Suicide level bad, but that to me is like
Justice League
ego,
is a very different scenario, though. Justice League is a very different scenario because of all the, why Zack Snyder had to leave the production, right?
I do, and now I don't. I feel like I knew a year ago, and now I've forgotten.
So his daughter committed suicide, and so both he and his wife left the production. Warner Brothers hired Joss Whedon to finish the film, and Joss Whedon took the movie in a very different direction. The Justice League that we got in the theater is a very, very, very different version of Justice League than what Zack Snyder had imagined. And the fans kind of created this whole big hullabaloo and saying okay, but we want to see the Zack Snyder cut. And Zack Snyder already had a version, kind of put together based on all the stuff that he had filmed. So he had his version that he wanted to release, but, the money wasn't there to finish, the special effects, finish, the post-production and, all that stuff. So now they're spending, like $90 million, I think, to finish the Zack Snyder version of Justice League and get his version. So really, Justice League is the kind of film that the fans made happen, which
Yeah, and I want to see the recut because I like Justice League. And also, I mean, again, this goes back to a studio decision. Like, I like Joss Whedon and I like Snyder. They're just totally different directors. So,
They
you know,
are.
it feels like a studio choice to where, I mean, come on, the Avengers film's fine. You know, Whedon's he's solid. But if you're bringing in a certain kind of director, they weren't bringing in a director to bring in that vision. So I'm excited to see what that vision what looks like.
I agree. Anyway, guys, what do you think about The Godfather 3? Is this the first time that you're hearing of it? Do you think that Francis Ford Coppola can fix a few things that, you know, maybe he didn't get quite right the first time around? Are you, you know, one side or the other? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, we're moving on to our last emailed question of the day, and this question comes to us from Dave, who also lives here in New York City. How you doing, Dave? Dave said, Matt Reeves's The Batman has shut down once again, this time because someone on the crew has COVID. Why do we need to shut down productions? Just get that person off set and resume as normal. Okay, there's a few things, Dave, that I would like to address here. And yes, originally Deadline, and this was this morning at about 9:30 this morning. Deadline was reported that the Batman, the UK production has temporarily halted production due to a COVID-19 case on set. We have an update. I think it was like an hour, maybe half hour before the show started. We have an update on that. The person, why is this? Oh, my web browser's going nuts. There it is. It wasn't a crew member that had coronavirus. It is Robert Pattinson, who is tested positive for coronavirus. And when the star of your film has coronavirus, everything needs to shut down. He's the main star. If you don't have Robert Pattinson as Batman, you cannot make a Batman film. Simple as that. There are, Dave, I understand what you're saying with, if it's a crew member, why can't you just get that crew member offset, and replace him with a new crew member, or, you know, just go without them? Here are my thoughts in that regard. There is a certain incubation time when it comes to COVID-19. We know it's at least a week. You could have it for up to a week and not know it. You could have it for up to 2 weeks before you start showing symptoms. And if you have it for 2 weeks, or let's just go ahead and say 1 week. If you even have it for 1 week before showing symptoms, you are spreading it to other people. So just because one person started getting symptoms and they have tested positive for COVID-19, doesn't mean that they haven't already spread it to other crew members or cast members. So in that regard, everything needs to come to a complete halt, and everybody needs to go through another round of testing. Maybe they don't have, maybe the director has, maybe Matt Reeves got coronavirus from Robert Pattinson. We won't know for maybe another week or 2 weeks. That's why we quarantine. That's why when you go from one state to another state that has, you know, a high COVID population, you need to quarantine for a couple of weeks just to see if you start getting the symptoms. Chris, does this make sense to you? Do you agree with the production being shut down? Or, you know, if this was not Robert Pattinson and it just was a crew member, do you think that they could continue on with filming production? Or, I mean, obviously that is not the scenario. It is the star of the film who has coronavirus, and everything needs to come to a complete halt right now. But what's your take on it?
I mean, as an actor, I would want production to shut down while they at least investigated how it might have happened anyway. So unless you're like, you know, Tyler Perry, who has the juice to have a closed set completely in Atlanta, you're going to have this situation come up. And the length of time matters. Like, I wouldn't want, like, if it was a tertiary character, I wouldn't want to shut down for 3 weeks, a month, while they tried to figure it out. But I think at least shutting down for a few days while you got set up to retest everyone and started to kind of backtrace, okay, who is this actor been in contact with? What is there anything that we can do to make it a safe set? Because this is going to keep happening. We're going to keep seeing actors on shows as we go back into this. It's going to keep
Well, we've
coming
already
up.
been seeing this with live productions. Like, there are small town theater companies that have decided, you know what, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows who we are. We're just going to do a production of like Bye Bye Birdie, or I don't know, something, whatever. And then you come to find out, well, the entire cast of Bye Bye Birdie came down with COVID-19 because one person introduced it to the rest of the cast, and everybody else is shouting and screaming in each other's faces.
Right.
So,
which is even worse. It's not like me and you, if we were socially distant and we're having a civil
Right.
conversation. A lot of acting is say hello to my little friend. And like, that's a lot of, I'm putting a lot of
I wish
airstream
that
your
is
way.
all acting was just say hello to my loved one. Like, if that was what every audition was, nailed it every time.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts about Robert Pattinson getting COVID-19? Like, this is kind of a big deal. If you are looking forward to the Batman, if you're looking forward to seeing what Matt Reeves is able to bring to us, if you are excited for seeing the Riddler, Paul Dano playing the Riddler, right? Oh man.
Oh, Daniel's such a good actor. Underrated. People should give that dude deserves some props.
Right?
Man. He kills it. Everything he does.
This is one of the most, like, I'm more excited to see Paul Dano play the Riddler than I am to see Robert Pattinson play Batman.
Yeah. You've also got to remember with Robert's Batman character that they were already getting flack about his workout regimen and like,
True.
was he going to be able to physically embody
True.
the Batman? He's got sick, man. He's got to get through it. He's going to have to back to the gym a little bit and all of that. If you believe in that idea, I mean, you could argue that Michael Keaton's not exactly jacked up on his Batman
Agreed.
portrayal. But if you I like the idea of Batman being, super physically fit personally. So I would want him to have time to kind of get back to the same, for continuity's sake, if nothing else.
Anyway, guys, what do you think about all this stuff? Do you think that the production is going to be delayed even more? Well, obviously, the production is delayed. Do you think the film is going to be delayed? Do you think we as the fans are going to be affected by this particular news or happenstance? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, so with all of that down and out of the way, we've covered all the major news for the day. Now it is time to go on and take your live questions.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
All show long, you have been sending us in your live questions. You've been commenting on the things that we've been talking about, offering your 2 cents as well as we offer our 2 cents. So let's just start going through the live question portion and see what you got. Our first comment comes from Robbie Spratt. He says, "Hi, Mike." Hi, Robbie. I successfully saw Tenet last night. Oh, you dog. You SOB. Oh, man. Chris, let me get you up on screen here. Yeah, humble brag is right. Humble brag is right. I've been wanting to see Tenet. Now that some of the reviews have started coming out, and, people are saying it's kind of a confusing film. Christopher Nolan's got his head up certain places of his own body. I'm very excited and looking forward to seeing this film when I get a chance. My expectations have been tapered just a little bit. Chris, are you looking forward to seeing Tenet? Like, where are you at?
I want to see anything that Nolan does, even if it's, like Inception it had its problems, but I just think everything he does, it's almost like listening to a music band that doesn't sound like anybody else. Even if they're not your favorite band, it's like, okay, ZZ Top is still ZZ Top, so that's cool. I like that. So I just think he's always got his own flair, and I can't wait to see the film.
Same. As we go down, Robbie Spratt comments again, "I loved the new Bond trailer. I'm way more excited for it now." That's where I'm at. Because, Robbie, I think you and I have had conversations about this on the show a few days ago. We pretty much see eye to eye with Spectre. We both love Daniel Craig as James Bond. I think that he's the best James Bond that there's ever been. And this trailer definitely has raised my excitement a little bit. I don't think it's going to be as much of a continuation from the last story to this story. I think it's definitely going to be more of its own story with elements from the previous film. So that gives me a lot of hope and inspiration. Chris,
kind of the same thing. I think, we all dig that trailer. It's going to be a lot of fun. And they sold me on going back to the film, because I wouldn't probably have bought a ticket to see it. Like if there was no pandemic tomorrow, I wouldn't be in a rush to see the new Bond film, but now I would like to.
So if Bond was released tomorrow in all the theaters in New York are closed, but like if you had to go to Jersey or something, would you go to New Jersey to see Bond tomorrow?
That's a whole nother level of wanting to see the film.
Right.
I would not go to Jersey to see it. No. I would probably, if it were Suicide Squad or Batman, I would go to Jersey to see those two.
Interesting,
yeah.
Because I probably would go to Jersey to see. I know there are certain, Cinemark theaters that are opening up. I don't know where in New Jersey. I doubt in the New York metropolitan area, but there are theaters in Jersey that are opening up. So I don't know. Maybe I'll hop on New Jersey Transit and head on down to like Red Bank or something. And I don't know.
Check it out.
Maybe I'll have to go to Atlantic City. Who knows? Matthew Weil says, one of my gripes with Suicide Squad is, as a comic book fan, I know these are bad guys forced to do good. For some reason, they wanted to give every character a redemption arc, saying, actually, they are good guys who have made poor choices. I guess that's what you mean by tone. No. So with tone, I mean like the feeling of each scene, because each scene has its own kind of like general vibe or general feeling. So that's kind of what I mean with tone. Like what is happening narratively that, when you're outside of somebody's house, and let's just say you're at your friend's house and you're outside by yourself, you're smoking a cigarette, and then you walk back inside the house and there's this weird feeling. And it turns out that, your friend and his mom just had a really horrible fight. You were not privy to it. You were outside smoking a cigarette, but now you're back inside and the whole vibe, the whole tone has changed. That's what I'm talking about with tone in film. Like, it is the director's job to create this tone, whether you want it to be heavy and serious or more lighthearted and fun in nature. That's kind of what I mean with tone. Like it's one of those intangible objects that needs to be created in order to inform the audience what the characters are feeling, what they're thinking. Chris, do you have a different take on that?
Well, first off, great point, because I agree with that 1,000%. That Suicide Squad are bad guys. Everybody doesn't have a redemptive arc. Everybody's not misunderstood. That also annoyed me, and I completely forgot to bring that up. That's an excellent point. But I blame that on the writing, and I also blame it on just directionally how they decided to portray these characters. And Harley Quinn, to say her redemption arc, which to me was kind of mismanaged because of the dumbed down way that they wrote that thing. But I'm fine. If we want to give Will Smith's character a redemptive arc, great. But not everybody. Yeah. They're bad guys. I want to see them screw each other over. I want to see them try to kill each other, but not just because it's like some higher purpose of villainy, like the Enchantress, where I'm trying to take over the world. I'm trying to get. They scrap. Like in all the Suicide Squad stuff, they've got their own squabbles because these are bad guys.
Matthew Wiles goes on to say, also, I can't forgive the trailer for straight up lying and misleading me about the main villain. I'm guessing that's Suicide Squad. The main villain being... I
thought it was the Joker, probably. Perhaps?
I mean, you're right. That trailer was...
I thought the Joker was going to be in it way more based on the way that they did the trailers.
And again, you could take the Joker out of the movie and nothing would change. Absolutely nothing would change. At one point, Joker goes to rescue Harley Quinn from the top of a roof. The helicopter gets shot down. Harley Quinn falls back onto a different roof, and we never see Joker again. I mean, he didn't die. He shows up at the end of the movie to spring Harley Quinn from prison, but it was like, remove Joker from the movie. It makes no difference whatsoever. You're right. They totally lied. They totally lied to us. Matthew Wiles says, you mentioned Bryan Cranston. What's going on with him? He used to be in every movie now. He used to be in every movie. Now he's doing bits in rubbish films like the new film on Disney Plus, Ivan and Power Rangers. Oh, so Ivan, I think it's called Ivan the Great, is the new movie on Disney Plus. And yeah, you're right. He had a cameo, not just a cameo. He played a character in the new-ish Power Rangers movie. Has he fallen out of favor for some reason? No, I don't think he's fallen out of favor. I just think that Bryan Cranston is doing what he wants to do. He's choosing projects that are fun and interesting for him. And with actors like Bruce Willis, for a while, Bruce Willis was just doing what he wanted to do. He was having fun with the roles that he chose. I mean, now Bruce Willis is acting because he needs to earn a paycheck. He's in debt. He's in kind of a similar scenario as Nicolas Cage. Like, they're working because they have bills to pay. They're not working because it's fun for them. While that used to be the case, it's not the case now. I don't think Bryan Cranston is in that same kind of he's doing it for a paycheck. I think he's having fun with the roles, and he's choosing roles based on what he thinks is interesting. Maybe not the things that we think are interesting. Chris, do you have a different take on that? Do you think Bryan Cranston is working for a paycheck, or do you think he's just kind of hanging out and having a good time?
No, I was saying before, like, I read his autobiography, which is great. Anybody, you should really read it, especially if you're an actor. It's really good for acting. He's the guy that really loves craft, and I think every once in a while he might take a quick cameo, but he's just doing the things that he likes. And he likes Broadway, he likes theater, and those are the things that he gravitated to after Breaking Bad. I mean, I don't know if this is a real point. It's possible. He's never really had that bankable, I can carry a film moment to me when he's been in things. And that might also be a factor. So, yeah, I'm also kind of hoping that they tie the Better Call Saul universe and that he's going to come back in some way and that we can kind of piggyback off that, the El Camino film. And he'll bring it. But he's a fantastic actor. But, I mean, he's a TV actor. His successful stuff has been TV. Mm-hmm. I don't think the TV movie divide matters as much. Obviously, it doesn't matter as much as it used to. But I do think just to find that one, and this is me being really subjective, I think sometimes if you play a historical character, that's great, but that doesn't necessarily make you a bankable movie star. You got to kind of have that, whatever, Liam Neeson kind of film, or that obviously this is a great actor that also now has kind of shown that they can carry a film.
Well, I think that brings up a really interesting point, because he is a great actor. He has
amazing actor,
and proven that he has the chops. He has what it takes. And if you want to elevate your movie to like a higher level, let's look at Ivan the Great. It just dropped on Disney Plus like a few days ago. Ivan the Great is based on a true story, first and foremost. And this true story had a book written about it called Ivan the Great. And now Disney's just turned it into a movie, which is there was a circus ringleader who had back from like the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, somewhere through there. There was a gorilla in this particular circus who started drawing paintings all by himself, or herself. I guess his name is Ivan, so it's probably a male gorilla. So this gorilla has like started making paintings of like jungles and things, and it's remembering where it came from, and that's kind of the genesis of the story, and then it goes on, blah blah blah, whatever. Let's just say you cast I don't know, Freddie Prinze Jr. in the same role. Like, Freddie Prinze Jr., I feel like that is a film that would do Freddie Prinze Jr. a favor, whereas Bryan Cranston is doing the movie a favor. He's elevating the movie from wherever it is up a few notches, just for the sheer fact that you have this incredible actor in the role. Do you?
But talk about like a bait and switch. We were talking about that before with Suicide Squad. I mean, he was. I mean, like I watched Godfather. I mean, not Godfather. I watched Godzilla. I wanted to see Bryan Cranston, and then spoiler alert. Let's just say he's not a central feature in the film throughout. But what if he was? Like, see, that could have been the thing that sort of launches him as someone that really, goes hand in hand with the franchise. Mm-hmm. And I think he just hasn't had that role yet. Because I do think if you look at something like, what was it that he played where he's on the blacklist and it's a communist list and it's a great film.
James Spader.
He plays. Well, I mean, like Bryan Cranston plays a film director that was blacklisted during the communist craze, but
starts with a T.
But
Trumbo, Donald Trumbo.
Trumbo, yeah, and he's great in that film. But I feel like sometimes those are like, that's your vegetables, you know. Like if you play in Frost Nixon, it's like you're eating your vegetables, and they're really good films.
Right.
And you don't really get maybe the play where, let's put him in anything. Because I feel with Bryan Cranston kind of the same way I feel about Michael Keaton. There's never been anything that Michael Keaton's ever been in that wasn't elevated because he was in the film. And I feel the same way about Bryan Cranston. Like him just being in it, I think he's doing them a solid. Yeah. Just being in it.
That's exactly how I feel. We have one more live comment or question of the day. And Chris, I can already assure you, this is my favorite question of the day. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Also coming from Matthew Wiles. Why do New Yorkers hate New Jersey?
That's it. Now, did that question come in based on my comments, or was that before?
Yeah, based on both your comments and my comments alike. Just the
okay.
inherent.
Now I understand why it happened.
Would you go to Jersey to see a movie? There's this friendly rivalry, and I would say it's friendly. I don't think that there's any like real antagonistic animosity between New Yorkers and the lesser people that is inherently negative. It's just a friendly rivalry. I think we love to hate on, in order, Staten Island and then New Jersey. Even though Staten Island is it's one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, but it's where we dump our garbage. So why do we care about it?
Well, for me, I will only speak for myself. For me, because I'm also a stand-up comic, and I've been to all the places I've been to a lot of New Jersey. So it can be a radically different experience depending on where you are in Jersey. So even though I kind of did a bit and was talking about Jersey, what I was really saying is I don't want to get in a train. I don't want to take a train to have to go see a film. It's going to have to be something huge.
Right.
I wouldn't go to Staten Island. I wouldn't even go to Long Island City to see a film. And I could probably, I wouldn't do any of that to have to sit in a subway or on a bus with the pandemic, and have to worry about all of that. It would really take a lot. I haven't been in a subway since March. So,
Chris, what borough do you live in?
I've been in cars.
What borough do you live in?
I live in Manhattan.
Okay.
So, yeah. And so, I just think it depends on where you are.
We're Manhattan
Like,
snobs.
I will tell you, like, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and I do a bit in my stand-up act about there's cool South and not cool South. I feel the same way about Jersey. There's cool Jersey and not cool Jersey.
I agree.
It just depends on where you are.
And I used to live in Jersey for a few years. There's like this weird cultural difference. Like even as close as we are in proximity to each other, there's like that hard line of here's the Hudson, here's New York, here's New Jersey. And it's just just people act differently. It's not a bad thing. It's just people like people from the South act differently from New Yorkers. People in California act differently from people in Canada. It's just, we're just different personalities. And I think it's just a friendly rivalry that we like to joke about. Anyway, that will do it for all of our live questions today. So we're just going to close out the show with this. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is what the state of New Jersey would want you to do. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for offering your own level of expertise as an actor, as a comedian, as an improviser, as a teacher, as all manner of things in the entertainment realm. Tell the good people where they can find you online.
You can find me on all my social media stuff, and if you want to see some clips of me, my acting, doing stand-up, whatever, ChrisGriggsComedy.com, Chris, ChrisGriggs comedy.com. If you are interested in taking improvisational classes or stand-up classes, I have classes up on the pit-nyc.com, and you can find some classes on that. But if you just go to my website and email me, I can point you in a direction.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. Thank you for submitting questions and listening to the movie news and, just being a part of the discussion. This is, like I said, an online community forum that we're trying to kick off and, make it sustainable. Additionally, I still have a San Diego Comic-Con 2020 pin, an enamel pin officially licensed from San Diego Comic-Con up for grabs. If you want to win this pin, just go down to the comment section below and type the words Toy Tuesdays. That will make you eligible to win the pin. As well, make sure that you're subscribing, or that you are a subscriber to the YouTube channel, that you have liked, and that you have shared this video. All things to qualify for the Comic-Con San Diego 2020 enamel pin. All right, guys, my name is Mike Brown. This will end the show today. We live in a weird world. We live in a weird world. Everybody has their own thoughts and ideas and opinions, and sometimes those thoughts and ideas and opinions don't exactly match up with our own. So I always encourage everyone to go out there and speak kind words to each other, listen to each other, maybe listen first, give our 2 cents later. Yeah, bottom line, speak kind words to each other. Anyways, guys, this has been Gotta Love Them Movies. I'm Mike Brown. Once again, thank you much. Thank you so much. Oh, and be sure to tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow is our Gotta Debate Them Movies Friday. So if you want to see Kay Hartman take on the challenger for tomorrow in our great debate challenge, be sure to tune in tomorrow at 4 Eastern Standard Time. Anyway, guys, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.